there a difference between autism and anxiety? Are autistic people anxious because they're autistic, or are autistic people anxious because they also have a diagnosis of anxiety? Well, on this video, we are going to explore the connection between autism and having a diagnosed form of anxiety. Bring it. Hey, I'm orionkelly, that autistic guy, and since my diagnosis later in life, I've chosen to devote my time to advocating for the autistic community. And I do that through my podcasts, my blogs, and these YouTube videos. And my real and genuine goal is to try and raise the level of understanding and acceptance of autistic people right across the planet. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, maybe you'd like to learn more about what it's like being an autistic person in a neurotypical world, I'd appreciate it if you would join this beautiful community of ours and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Thank you to those that have already reached out to me on the socials and subscribed to my channel. I really do appreciate it, because in subscribing, in watching, in rating, in commenting, in sharing, you'll help me reach more people across the planet with the goal of raising that level of understanding and acceptance of autistic people. And if you haven't done that yet, no shame in that, do it now. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button and ring the notifications bell so you never miss another episode. You're also welcome to reach out to me on my socials. You can follow me on Facebook. Yep, follow the orionkelly page. Find me on Instagram. You can also check me out on my other social platforms, including Twitter. And if you'd like to see some videos of mine, but not long ones, more smallish, kind of funny ones, well, go and check out my videos on TikTok. The social platforms, they're there for you to reach out and connect with me and other people in this beautiful community. And if you've been meaning to check out my podcasts, blogs, and the rest of my YouTube videos, well, you can always find them in one place on my website. Okay, go to orionkelly.com.au. On my website, you will find everything that I've produced: podcasts, blogs, YouTube videos, info on me. You can even reach out and send me a message and say, hey. First up, let's talk about the autistic connection. So, autism and anxiety. Are they connected? How are they connected? Well, some recent stats that I found said that 80 to 85% of autistic adults have a comorbidity of at least one form of diagnosed anxiety. Okay, 80 to 85% of autistic people who clearly were part of the research of the study have at least one diagnosed form of anxiety. And that's where this conversation comes into play. A comorbidity is just a long fancy word for really other diagnosis. Okay, all right, so I, Orion, am an autistic person. I am, and this is, I'm just telling you facts about me, I have two comorbidities. Okay, I'm autistic and I have comorbidities of social anxiety disorder and generalized anxiety disorder. They're my comorbidities. So I'm part of that 80 to 85% of autistic people who have a comorbidity of one form of a diagnosed anxiety condition. All right, so that's just, it is what it is. So this video is really important because, okay, we all understand that being an autistic person from watching my videos isn't a walk in the park, but that's just being autistic. Then you lump on these other comorbidities, which could be for some people anxiety, others it could be depression, or others it could be completely different conditions. But when you lump that on, you can see how life can be made even trickier, even more confronting. So I hope this video is going to give you a little bit of insight into what I would class as the absolute top form of diagnosed anxiety conditions experienced by autistic people. Let's start with the first of the two forms of my diagnosed anxiety conditions, and that is social anxiety disorder. I was diagnosed with social anxiety disorder at the time of my autistic diagnosis, so it's a comorbidity of my autistic diagnosis, in addition to generalized anxiety disorder, which we'll get to soon. But let's talk about social anxiety disorder. And also, this is the interesting thing, okay? And I'm just talking here. I'm not an academic, I'm just an autistic dude. A lot of the traits of being autistic are very similar to the traits of having social anxiety disorder. Because think about it, a neurodevelopmental disability, being autistic, very much around communication, around social interaction, and all the many things that goes with communicating and interacting in a neurotypical world. And if already we're behind the 8 ball with the neurotypical skills and abilities to thrive in that world, in that communicating, interacting world, well, it's probably pretty safe to say that in entering that world without those skills, you're probably going to be absolutely weighed down with anxiety, right? So it's an interesting conversation. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. But let's talk about social anxiety disorder. Basically, it's just a persistent, ongoing fear of social situations. And I guess at the core of the fear of those social situations, those social interactions, is embarrassment, looking stupid, offending people, saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing. And the anxiety that goes with that fear of those social situations, doesn't seem proportionate to what would probably be happening in those social situations. In other words, the threat posed by those social situations doesn't match the fear of the threat in those social situations. It's real in my mind, but potentially not in real life. Though I don't know, I question that. See, a lot of these, if you look up descriptions on social anxiety disorder, I think they're through the guise of neurotypical people experiencing it. But as an autistic person, this is already my day-to-day life. So it's interesting. In other words, the threats are real because I'm an autistic person trying to communicate and interact in a neurotypical world with neurotypical people. They're real threats. They're not out of proportion. So yeah, it's a conversation. Continue it in the comments. So let's talk this through. I think also at the core of social anxiety disorder is of this real and genuine feeling of constantly being scrutinized or judged by everyone else in these social situations. Now, I know that can kind of sound just a little bit over the top, but that's really what it is. I mean, you fear going into those interactions because you just assume you'll be scrutinized, judged, looked down on, and somehow you'll come out being embarrassed, looking bad. And it's a level of uncomfort that is at such a level that you would do anything to avoid it. And clearly that anxiety, that fear, well, that leads to avoidance. Because I just said, you'll do anything to avoid feeling that. So clearly that will lead you to avoid the actual interactions. You'll stay away from social interactions. And clearly avoidance, well, that's disruptive to anyone's life. It's going to disrupt your life. If you decide that you must just simply avoid interacting with the outside world or any kind of social interactions, that's going to be pretty disruptive to really any person's life. I think that's a given. And what I mean by that is, I guess the stress that is produced from the anxiety, the avoidance, the disruption, affects other people, right? It affects your family. It affects your partner, your kids, your friends. It can affect your job. It can affect your outside world. It can affect your health. Do you see how that can manifest? I don't necessarily think it's worth giving you a shopping list of all the different types of things that could be under the guise of this. Yeah, because I think you're smart enough to work it out for yourself. How about I give you examples for me? Okay, so from example of social anxiety disorder, it's not that I don't like my neighbors or the people that live around me, because that's just not true. Like, of course, I like my neighbors. Like, they're all friendly, they're all nice, they all say hey, they all wave. But from my point of view, the idea that if I go outside, right, to get the bins or go to the car or go into the yard or whatever, the idea that if I do that and then another neighbor may also be outside and see me and want to talk to me will cause me to decide to not go outside, or will cause me to kind of case the joint first, look around. The coast is clear. Does that make sense? And again, it's not about them, it's about me. I feel I just feel something inside me where I can't do it. I'll only go outside if I don't have to interact with anyone. And it's not about them, it's obviously about me. That level of scrutiny, judgment, embarrassment, saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing. It's the same with my son, right? Okay, so my 7-year-old son, he's autistic. He's basically the opposite to me. He will walk up to anyone and just start talking to them. It's not good for me. So let's say we are both outside, we're playing in the backyard, and then some people walk by the front footpath or whatever, and he decides to just go up to them and just start talking to them. That's the worst case scenario for me. My goal would be to get into the house as quickly as possible, and you're on your own, champ. We'll get my wife to go and rescue the conversation, because that is dragging me into that interaction, and I don't want to be part of that interaction. And in doing that, I get so anxious, and I can see my son wants to go over and talk to people that I kind of freak out and try to stop him. And I know that's not healthy. You should not be stopping people in your life from talking to other people, and that's not what I'm trying to do. But it's like, oh, hey buddy, you don't know them, or no, don't talk to them, buddy, or shh, this way, because it's like, I'll have to go talk to them and smooth it over or sort it out, and I don't want to do that. Or if I'm at the back and my wife's at the back and we can see people have arrived at our house or about to interact with us, my wife, it's a joke to her. She'll see me just go straight inside and close the door, and I'm out. The next form of anxiety I want to talk about is generalized anxiety disorder, or GAD. GAD presents as basically a persistent and excessive worry of really everything. You feel really concerned, like maybe irrationally or overly concerned about basically everything. So money, jobs, friends, family, work, home. I mean, the list goes on, but you get the point. Really, you're kind of concerned in a really heightened way about everything in your life and everything in your life potentially going bad. It's an exhausting form of anxiety to have, because look, in essence, you can't control your worrying, right? You can't control the level that you worry. You can't control not worrying or worrying. You just worry. And like I said earlier in the video, one of my comorbidities with my autism diagnosis was a diagnosis of general anxiety disorder. So I know exactly what this feels like. I mention it in other videos from time to time, like I basically feel like a caveman. You don't know if you're going to be attacked, you're hunting, you're fighting. Only problem is I'm not a caveman, and I'm certainly not, as a rule, protecting myself and running away from constant attacks by wild animals or other people. But my brain still acts like I am. So for me, the amygdala is almost non-stop, which is just pumping my body with stress hormones, cortisol, and I guess in the end, there's never a break from all this. Generalized anxiety disorder is basically like a caveman being attacked or running away from an attack with every single facet of your life. And also, I guess, it makes me fear the worst in every situation, even when it's not apparent that kind of scenario could occur. And I can only really share my own personal experiences on how it makes me feel. But being an autistic person with GAD, I can find that just the sheer constant and intense nature of the worrying can really have a debilitating effect on you physically and mentally. So that clearly interferes with not only your day-to-day life, but also your quality of life. And from a point of view of just helping you understand the autistic person in your life and the person in your life that may have this form of anxiety or a form of anxiety, just think, how would you feel mentally and physically if you thought something terrible was going to happen in every action or interaction, every happening in your day-to-day life? It's not something you woke up and said, I'm going to do this just to be a whinger whiner. Poo-poo everyone. Imagine if your brain thought something terrible was going to happen in every single interaction and action in your day-to-day life. How would that make you feel? And that's an insight into the people in your life. So we need some compassion and understanding here. The next form of anxiety I want to discuss is agoraphobia. Now, what I find really interesting about agoraphobia is, again, it can be a very similar experience to what autistic people will feel from simply being autistic. So, what's agoraphobia? Well, at a basic level, it's where people are afraid to leave environments that they consider to be safe. Now, what rings true for autistic people is having safe people and safe places are core parts of feeling good about yourself, right? Because when you leave the world, you are going into areas you can't control the sensory issues. You've got interactions, neurotypical world challenges. So yeah, clearly in severe cases, someone with agoraphobia would consider probably their house to be the only safe place anywhere on the planet. Okay, so it can be debilitating and severe, there's no question about that. And this obvious severity of experience can lead that particular person, a person experiencing this severe agoraphobia, to not leave their home, not just for days, not just for weeks, but potentially months or even years. And again, in general terms, it's usually busy places that are the worst offenders, the most avoided places to go to. And as an autistic person, once again, I can relate to this. Shopping centres or big sporting halls and schools and busy streets, all these types of environments, these busy environments, aren't really a friendly stomping ground for an autistic person. So I can absolutely understand what you would be experiencing if you had agoraphobia in not wanting to go to these busy places. For example, the supermarket, right before a lockdown's about to start, and every single person on the planet decides they need 700 rolls of toilet paper. Have you been to a shopping centre on, I don't know, Christmas Eve? What are you doing at a shopping centre on Christmas? It's a war zone, not a war zone. It's crazy. What I also find really interesting is this connection between autism and anxiety. So agoraphobia has been explained by, I guess, some experts as a fear of like the physical or the mental or the sensory impact of these places on the person. In other words, the sensation, the sensory input, the sensation that you feel in these places. Again, being autistic, sensory overload. You go to these places, you are going to be physically, mentally, emotionally overwhelmed. The sensation will be overwhelming. You could shut down, you could melt down, full-blown sensory meltdown. So you can see why there's this massively high percentage of autistic people that also have comorbidities of one form or another of diagnosed anxiety. As an autistic person, and even as a dad of an autistic son, agoraphobia really resonates with me, rings true for me. It's an experience I have, not only sometimes, it's hard to get our autistic son to go anywhere, to leave the house and go anywhere, even though we know where we're going, he likes. And this is, again, really interesting because not only do we experience this, but it's actually probably a pretty common experience for most autistic people. So the connection between being autistic and having comorbidities of anxiety is not only obviously clearly there, but plays a really significant part in the day-to-day life of an autistic person's quality of life. Another really common form of anxiety experienced by autistic people is obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD. OMG. And you probably already get the gist of OCD. You can certainly look it up and learn more, but look, the basic premise is something along the lines of uncontrollable, repetitive behaviors that I guess you feel compelled to perform. So a person with OCD may experience recurrent, persistent thoughts, images, impulses. The basic feeling too is that all these things, they're unwanted, right? They're intrusive. You don't wake up in the morning and say, yeah, hey, please fill my brain with actions that I'm compelled to perform on a repetitive basis. And more than that, the repetitive behaviors with OCD, right? They're time consuming. Agree? It's excessive. Okay, a couple of examples. If I lock the door, the front door to the house, let's say, it doesn't matter that I know that I've locked the front door to the house. Down the track in that day, maybe it's at night time, doesn't matter, but on the same day, and I know no one else has gone near the door, I will still need to check it again to confirm it is locked. Even though I know I locked it, that key's where they need to be, door's locked, doesn't matter. Got to check it again. And then once I've checked it, I'll walk away and my brain will tell me, hang on, are you sure? Did you really check it? You might just check it again, right? And you check it again. I also have a pretty healthy obsession with symmetry, exactness, tidiness, orderliness. Does that make sense? Yeah. Go to my space is not going to be trashed or messy, right? Like other people in my family, they're not like me. And I'll basically say, oh yeah, it's over in your slob corner. You know, like it's a joke, but it's because, you know, they've got in the corner, they've got like clothes in a pile on the ground. For me, I couldn't think, why would you put clothing in piles on the ground? It's going on your person. What, you want dirty piled clothes on your body? What? No. Another example, let's say I'm using the stovetop to cook some dinner, right? But I'm just using one of the burners. When I turn that burner off because I'm done, I'll turn every burner off, but they weren't on, right? So I've turned the one burner that was on, I've turned off, but then I'll go along the whole panel and even if I'm moving it to nothing, I'm just hitting resistance, I will do the motion of turning off all the burners just to make sure that all the burners are off. A really interesting connection between being autistic and OCD. OCD has a kind of idea that you get stuck on a particular thought, a particular action. You know, so your brain is kind of locked in on a urge, a thought, a urge, a action, locked in on that. And I can relate to that as an autistic person. Please just view it for what it is. Don't judge it. Don't shame people for it. If there's a person in your life that has OCD, maybe they're autistic with OCD. Just understand that this causes them to not actually be able to control being compelled, right? These impulses, it's beyond their control. So this is where shaming and judging is unhelpful. Anxiety is not a dirty word, and it's certainly something we as a community need to understand more about. I hope my own personal experiences and this video have given you a little bit more of an insight into anxiety and its connection with autism. If you like this video, please rate it, comment, share it with your friends and family. Check out my other videos and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Until the next video, thanks for watching and talk soon.